What's up, everybody? Today I am popping on to talk about some deep shit here, which is why maybe we just need to start off with a little woo. Okay. Headers. What are the headers of this live? Rehabilitating fallen consciousness, being steeped in a collective consciousness, thought forms, the topic and conversation of thought forms, sexual misery, and the impact of over-sexualization or too early exposure to sexuality for children and the impacts of that. So hopefully I'm going to be able to weave all this together and tie it in like I usually do in all of my lives, you guys. Okay. We're coming in with the fucking energy today. So, let me start this with a transmish about being steeped in the collective consciousness and being a part of a collective consciousness, which is currently in the process of rehabilitating. Okay, and we're going to weave in specifically sexuality and specifically the impact that this collective stew and this fallen consciousness has on the sexuality, has on sexual misery. And what I want to share with you guys, and hopefully I know this is going to hit some of you, okay? And I may not use specific examples, but I know this is going to hit you. Okay, let me wet my whistle. So, you have to be kidding me right now. The cat. I'm sorry. Always when we're trying to make a point, the cat has to come in, bitch. Okay. So listen, I am all about setting the tone. I am all about setting the frequency. I am all about embodying what next? What are we doing next, right? So I don't love to just continue to harp on the fallen system and all this, but there are times, honey, when this comes into the conversation. And when we're talking about sexuality and when we're talking about thought forms and children and over-sexualization of children, we have to talk about fallen consciousness, and we have to talk about the collective consciousness that we are steeped in. And this is so important. So, you guys, there are so many people out there who have had sexual experiences that they are ashamed of. They have had thought forms that they are ashamed of. And I'm going to say that this is every person on the planet to some degree or another. And there's a level of shame that is connected to these thought forms, that's connected to the sexual misery and the sexual perversions that come up. And what it does is it's so suppressed. There are so many parts of sexuality. There are so many parts of the thoughts and the way that the body responds to those thoughts and perversions that people do not want to talk about, that they don't want to feel, that they don't want to face, and that they feel so ashamed of. So I want to say, first of all, that is the majority of people. And we cannot underestimate the impact that being exposed to sexual material of any kind as a child, we can't underestimate what the impact of that is. And so what I see for so many people, and what I've personally gone through in my own healing process of healing these things and working towards that, is that I really made it mean something about me. I carried so much shame, so much guilt, so much almost like self-hatred for the things that I had experienced. And I think if I had known earlier on that a lot of this stuff isn't even so personal. Yes, much of it's connected to our bloodlines, but it's connected to the collective consciousness. it's connected to the fact that we are on a planet that the relational template has largely been destroyed. So we are learning how to have relationships. And what that means, what is a relationship? It's the unification of energy. And so we're going to see all these distorted forms of the fallout of the lack of that connection being there, right? And it's going to come up in all these distorted ways and all these perversions and inversions. But that's kind of like, duh, that's going to happen. So if we were exposed to things early on, or we were traumatized by the human relationship, then that means that something is going to happen within the sexual energy field, because it's a way of trying to get connection, right? So you see how sex, connection, intimacy, all of those things are very connected. And we have to understand that the entire human race is healing these things. We have generations and generations, hundreds and thousands of years of torture and rape and capture and all kinds of strange things taking place. There are so many energies that are even earthbound right now because of this. So it's not just about you and what you're rehabilitating. It's about what we're doing as a whole. And this is part of why we have to not take some of the thought forms that we might have so personally. Okay, I think I gave an example of this in another live that I did, but I was taking the trash can out from the bathroom, and I literally had this thought come into my head that said, you know, bash your head over the cat with this trash can. Now, that is not my thought. I'm not thinking that about my cat. So we have to be discerning also that not every thought that we have is our own, that many of us are only just now waking up. So for me, part of the sexual inversions and perversions that I had to clear were connected to people that I had actually had sex with, or, you know, God forbid, a child who is around other people who are engaging in these types of things, right? We can be very sensitive. We can pick that up. Or God forbid, being molested, right? And you take on that kind of dark energy that's coming, whatever entity is actually feeding on that person, you end up taking that on too. And so there's this need to transform and rehabilitate that consciousness. And so what I'm saying is that it's not something to be ashamed of. It's pretty much the status quo at this point. And we have to come out of our caves of shame around our sex, around our sexuality, around the experiences and the things that have happened to us, so that we can see that we can come out of the closet and we can see that this is not a one-off. This is not you necessarily. This is a collective energy that we have to move forward. And I want to say, one of the things that I'm really feeling strongly right now is that these dark forces, they breed in the darkness, right? So if we continue to keep these things hidden and we continue to feel ashamed and not talk about them and not forgive ourselves and understand what the bigger picture is here, we can really be fed off of. And that's actually a way to continue to lock us into that pattern, is through isolation. And interestingly enough, it can become exciting, because when we don't talk about something, or when we are ashamed of something and we keep it to ourselves, it's like our own little secret. And again, that kind of breeds its own, how do I explain this? It's like, because we have gone through so much of this rape and torture and abuse, many of us developed a taste for the pain that got interwoven in with the sexuality. Or we got a taste for just this strange flavor of sexuality that may not necessarily be our true sacred union sexual template, which, by the way, doesn't mean like it's so holy and pure and whatever. But when we get a taste for that, what happens is it starts to pattern our own nervous system in a kind of a synthetic way, in a cheap way, in a fast food kind of way. And I think because there's so much pain and disconnection, it's a fast hit, it's a quick hit, it's like a drug or something like a fix. But it is a very different feeling than true connection to this perpetual field of sexuality, right? It's different, it's fast, it's addictive almost. And the reason, part of why it becomes addictive is because it spikes the nervous system, and so it spikes the adrenaline and it spikes the cortisol. And this is where, you know, sexual addiction can come in. This is where like fetishes and stuff like that can come in and become really linked in with the nervous system. And then we'll go for, it's like our brain and our body know that if we go for this particular stimuli, we're going to get this thing fast, whatever it is. And so it's a process of literally unwiring ourselves from that synthetic, cheap and fast kind of sexual energy and into something that's actually 10 times greater, 100 times greater, 1,000 times greater. But it's a different kind of energy, and it takes a lot to cultivate that. So every single thought that you ever have is not your own. You don't have to take ownership of every thought that you ever have. You don't have to attach to every thought that comes in. And if you are someone out there who has either gotten off to things that you feel ashamed of, right? Because I guess part of one of the pieces I was going to say is like with that synthetic like high, you also tend to have a low. Which, you know, this other cultivation of this other kind of sexual energy and your more organic sexual energy, you're not going to have that low. You're not going to have that drop afterwards. But if you have used your sexual energy and connected to thought forms that you're ashamed of, if you have had thought forms that you're ashamed of, if you did things in your childhood or as a teenager, as a preteen, that you were ashamed of, because of your own, you know, a child is innocent, a child is curious. So we have to really get that. A child is literally a sponge. So they're just going to pick up on whatever is going on. And it's very confusing because you're a biological being. So there are sensations there. This is part of why, you know, when people go through rape or molestation as a child, it's so confusing because you're still a person. You still have senses and nerves and all of that stuff. So there's a level of care. There's a level of something that feels good about it. And there's something about it that doesn't feel good. And that's why it can be so nuanced. But I want to say that no matter what you have done, no matter what you are ashamed of that you think is so bad or so wrong or so whatever, and you've allowed this thing to brew and to hold power over you in some way, you've allowed it to crush your self-esteem or to crush your self-worth, please forgive yourself. Please forgive yourself and see that sometimes even when we mentally become aware of something that we no longer want to be engaging with, it takes time to repattern that. It takes time to rehabilitate this and to keep the context in mind that we are a collective body. You know, we are individuals in this lifetime and nobody can do the work for us, but we're also very much so steeped in a collective body which is rehabilitating a fallen and digressed consciousness. That is here. So you can release yourself from that shame. You can forgive yourself. You can know that source, that your guardians, that your guides, they know what's going on here. They know your heart. That's what matters. So don't allow that to steal your light, to make you feel ashamed. Certainly, do the work that you need to do to heal that, to work through that, and to release it, and to let go of it, and to know that these experiences that we take on in this human form are experiences. They are not who you are. They are not what you are. You know, we have lived many lifetimes And many of us have done very horrible things in those lifetimes. They were experiences. This is a part of our refinement. So bring it into the light, with people who will see you and feel you. Bring it into your circles of sisterhood or brotherhood. Share your stories with one another about what you have experienced, because once we start to share stories about this, what we see is that we have been pitted against ourselves. And by coming together and sharing these stories, we can see, oh my God, wait, that happened to you too? Wait, that happened to you too? Wait, there's a pattern. We're all kind of transmuting and picking up on different pieces of the puzzle. And you can obviously apply this to everything, but I'm really talking about these deeper kind of experiences with sexuality and fetish and fantasy and all the different ways, the mechanics of that, and the things that we experienced as children, and the ways that we were exposed to sexuality, and the ways that impacted us, and freeing ourselves from that shame and coming back together. Because I really think that it's in that we can collectively rise above it. We can leave it in the past, and then we can start to actually structure, what do we want this to look like? What do we want this to feel like? Okay, so we picked this stuff up. We're innocent beings, okay? Obviously, there are beings that are out there doing like very malicious things, but that's not what I'm really talking about. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. So I think that's pretty much it. Just like it's a salad, you guys. We got like 30 ingredients. I throw it up in the air and I just hope that it all lands. I'm a little like that. So, but there's like pockets of codes, and if you can just get the pockets, get your fucking code, get your whatever you need to get, honey, out this, bring it home, bring it into your own grid, however that works for you, and send it out to the team, send it out to the fam. It's a heavy one, but I really feel that by bringing it into the light, we can move out of the crippling shame and anything that's keeping us hooked into that. It's much lighter. We get to feel light about it. And we also get to feel heavy about it. That's fine too. It's all a part of it. All right, beauties. Have a wonderful day. And I will see you around. We've been doing lives every other day, and you've been getting a full dose.